The Big 12 has messed up with its scheduling in 2024. Who better to talk about that with than Drake Toll, the host of Locked On Big 12 on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts Monday through Friday, just like this very show. Drake, I am puzzled because I was looking for rivalry week on the Big 12 schedule this year because I look for that in every conference. I also look for who's got a favorable schedule here and there. We might touch on Colorado later. I think they're a really good bet at over 4.5 wins. But what's the Big 12 thinking?
It's a scared move. It's a scared move. You're going to see people justify this by saying that the Big 12 has moved its marquee matchups around and tried to sprinkle them throughout the season. You'll get a BYU playing Utah, which I think is the biggest game in the Big 12 this season, biggest rivalry at least, on November 9th. And the reason the Big 12 is doing this is to try to keep things away from rivalry weekend, from Auburn, Alabama, from the game. But instead, we get TCU and Cincinnati. And to me, this delegitimizes what the Big 12 gives you as a product. It is settling to say, okay, we know that the SEC is so much bigger, so much better. The Big 10 is so much bigger, so much better. If the reasoning is to stay away from the big games, well, then you're just saying we're not good enough. You're laying down, you're falling on your own sword and saying we can't compete, so we're not going to attempt to. I believe that the right number of eyes on rivalry weekend could be on BYU and Utah if that game is even on a Friday where a lot of these marquee matchups are played. I don't think that having the lone rivalry, Spencer, here's what ticks me off the most. The only rivalry that weekend is Arizona State, which in the Big 12,
classic Big 12 rivalry if I've ever heard one, Drake.
They have one 6 win between them in history. I would rather Iowa State and Kansas State. They probably hate each other on a larger scale than Arizona State. And that's the rivalry that we put out there. That might be the joke of the cherry on top of the joke of the Sunday of what the Big 12 decided to do in scheduling. Look, it's easy. And you could have had more protected rivalries or pods or something strategic, but it just feels like the Big 12 keeps whiffing when it comes to the football schedule.
Which is strange because they do basketball so well. Every time I tune into basketball, it's the deepest basketball conference in the country. It seems like they're churning out top 25 matchups every week. Now, they have a very strong conference, I think stronger comparatively than what they've got in the football sphere, and that helps. But it is difficult, right? You lose Red River, you lose Bedlam. Those are big, nationally relevant rivalries, and it's tough to go in that direction. But I do think they need to consider, what is our marquee game? Every conference has one, okay? In the Big 10, no matter which teams come in and out, Ohio State, Michigan, that's your flagship game. Everybody's going to watch that. Yep. The SEC has now got Red River. That's what it was in the Big 12. I don't think the Pac-12 really had one. I think they had a couple, Oregon, Washington, Oregon, USC, maybe little USC, UCLA in there, but none of those were on the same level. And guess what? The Pac-12 is not here anymore. The ACC, Florida State, Clemson, must-watch television. Everybody knows it. Big brands, big game. I think the Big 12 is still working to define itself in that sense. You can only do that when you have big brands and really good, successful programs, which leads me into the next point I wanted to hit with you here, which is,
go ahead. I want to touch, Spencer, on your Clemson Florida State take, which I really like that you mentioned that. 15 years ago, nobody cared about that. When Clemson and Florida State were playing, this wasn't a thing. Nobody cared. What created that was consistent winning on the part of Clemson, even more so than Florida State, considering their tumultuous last decade. So when one of those two teams was really good and the other was a powerful brand, that created must-see TV. To me, it shows good rivalries can be crafted over the course of time, over the course of 10 years of legitimate success from one party. Clemson wasn't a power in college football. If Kansas State develops into a Clemson type by 2035, that's a big if, but in that scenario, if they've got somebody built into their schedule they play every year, then we can begin to craft those rivalries in the Big 12. Instead, Brett Yormark balks on that. I think it's for the worse.
I think Utah is such a steady, consistent program, and they're going to be at or near the top of the conference every year, especially this season. They're my favorite to win the Big 12 right now, and I wanted to get into this with you because I believe we have differing opinions here. It is my contention the Big 12 is a one-bid league in 2024. I think that over time, that can change. But right now, I think if it comes down to this team's resume and that team's resume and an at-large berth here or there, I don't see the Big 12 team that's going to get the benefit of the doubt from the committee. And this is still going to happen, right? Everyone talks about the playoffs. It's going to be so much better. Teams will actually have access. We're going to have the same debates about 9-3 SEC teams, 11-1 G5 teams, or 11-2 Big 12 or all this sort of stuff. These debates are still going to go on. And I think brand power does, in fact, matter in those particular debates. I think the Big 12 is going to get their conference champion in no matter what. I don't have any reservations about that whatsoever. But after that, I don't see how they get a second team in. Do you?
Yeah, so the one thing that does benefit the Big 12 is if we do officially, at some point we have to move to the 5+7 format where it's 5 conference champions and then 7.
I anticipate that'll happen. I can't see that not happening.
I think it's got to. It's got to. Kirk Schultz be damned. It's got to. And when that day comes, it adds in one more at-large team. That's going to benefit, to me. It obviously benefits a fringe team. Can the Big 12 get that fringe team? The way that it happens, the way that you get 2 in, or even 3. Now, do I think 3 will happen next year? That's a lot. I'm asking a lot there. But the way that it happens is Utah goes 10-2 and misses the Big 12 championship. Utah goes 10-2, and then you have your TCU type, you have your Baylor type from 2021, TCU in 22.
I feel like the math gets tricky on Utah 10-2, not in the Big 12 title game.
We start talking tiebreakers. If you got one team that's a 1-loss team in Big 12 play, 2 teams that are 2-loss teams, and Utah is 10-2 with an undefeated non-conference. Now you can't keep 10-2 Utah out. Can you keep out another Big 12 team that went 10-3?
See, but here's the thing. I think you could. I think 10-2 Utah could absolutely miss the playoff without a conference championship game appearance. Now 11-2 Utah, that's different. 11-2 Utah that does what Oregon did this year. They go 11-1 in the regular season, lose the Big 12 championship game. That could be a path. I do not see 10-2 Utah because I don't think the Big 12 is going to get enough respect nationally to where a team that is not playing for its conference championship is going to get an at-large, because you're going to have 10-2 teams, like just on the surface, 10-2 Big 12 or 10-2 SEC. That's going to be SEC all day, every day, and it's probably going to be that way in the Big Ten as well. That's where my objection comes into. I think it is a pretty narrow and damn near impossible path for the Big 12 to have multiple teams in the playoff this year.
The only thing, the biggest saving grace is that the committee has valued the Big 12 over the ACC at times. If that trend continues as you saw this year. Now, look, I think Texas is a different animal. It's tough to consider Texas a Big 12 team. And someone's going to balk at that statement, but truly, that brand transcends the conference, and that helped them get in the college football playoff. I believe that's the case. These are people making these decisions, not the computer, so that brands can get in, so that money can be made. We have seen that this is a money-making business. Will it benefit the Big 12? Will the Big 12 benefit over the ACC? I can't guarantee it, but I do see a realm in which, again, your conference champion gets in as a lock in the new format. What if that's a team that came in at 9-3? We see 9-3 teams in the Big 12 championship. They win it. They go 10-3. The loser falls to 11-2, or even at 11-2.
That's where I think it gets dicey. That's where 11. That's where your non-conference can come into play, right? Yeah, and then you're getting to, well, which team is sitting there at 11-2, losing to a 9-3 team in the Big 12 championship game? Who are your quality wins against? Because I feel like the SEC is going to get the advantage there, and I think the Big Ten would have the advantage there. The ACC is closer to equal footing. I think the ACC has got stronger horses at the top. I think once you get to the middle, especially now that Jeff Hafley's gone from Boston College, I take the Big 12 there. I think there are a lot of really, really good teams in the middle. I just don't know if there are going to be enough dominant teams that could win 10-11 regular season games. I think you could go through this Big 12 schedule and have a battle of 9-3 teams.
And the thing is, we say that all the time. We say that so often, and then you have your TCUs, you have your Baylors, you have your Oklahoma State every 3 years where you go, and this on paper is probably a 7-5 squad, but the way the schedule falls, they just with somebody like a Texas Tech this year might go 11-1. You look up and you say, do they deserve to be 11-1? I don't know, but they are. And in a situation like that, a la TCU getting in, it's tough to keep that team out. Same as how Cincinnati got in from the AAC. It's just tough to keep that team out sometimes.
It can be, for sure. You mentioned Texas Tech real quick. They got a scheduling break in the offseason because Oregon wants to keep the game against Oregon State going. So Texas Tech plays at Washington State instead of at Oregon. I'm not saying Pullman's an easy place to play. It definitely is not, but that's a more winnable game than going to Autzen Stadium in Eugene, without a doubt. Real quick, Drake, before I let you go. Colorado, their win total is posted at 4.5. I love what they have done in the offseason in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They're adding Power 5 starters, guys that are going to be massive upgrades from a season ago. You've got Shedeur Sanders, you've got Travis Hunter, you've got other skill position guys. Over 4.5 feels like it's not going to last until the season begins.
No, I don't think that Colorado finishes under 5 wins this year. Now, I said the same thing this last year. After Colorado rattled off a couple of wins, I had them at minus 150 to go over 4.5 games and put the whole mortgage on it. I'm homeless now. So as much as I want to support the Colorado trend, I do think Deion Sanders and company will be better. Who's the best? What is the best roster, Spencer, in the Big 12? It's Colorado. They have the most 4 and 5 stars. They have the best roster talent-wise per 24/7 in the Big 12, the best transfer class now the last 2 years. At some point, to me, I think that has to click. One of the best quarterbacks in this conference, top 3 for sure, if not number 1. There are too many weapons with Colorado for them to finish without going to a bowl game at the very least in this league. I've got them at 6 wins. A Cincinnati game at home, that's a win. Oklahoma State at home, Baylor at home, both of those could be wins. I think Colorado at least goes to a bowl. 4.5 is a joke.
I completely agree. I would hammer over 4.5 wins for Colorado.
At FanDuel, right?
Exactly. At FanDuel. Absolutely 100% at FanDuel. And by the way, go look at their schedule. Go pull up Colorado's schedule for 2024. Tell me you don't see at least 5 wins. I think they're in the 6 to 8 range at a minimum come 2024. Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12 YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts all year round. His inaugural appearance here on Locked On College Football shall not be his last. Drake, thanks so much for stopping by. The people enjoy it.
Spencer, always a pleasure. Whoa, let me pop in there and tell you that today's show is brought to all of you kind folks by eBay Motors. eBay Motors keeps your ride or die alive. I love eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. So that's what brings home the winning trophy. That's what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. eBay Guaranteed Fit is part of it every time. It's going to fit your ride. Guaranteed. If not, your money back. You're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need, the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Go visit eBay Motors. I promise. Win every time with parts that fit your ride at eBay Motors.